Let's talk about the machinery, the anatomy, if you will, of cancel culture. What does it actually look like when it happens to a person who isn't famous, isn't well-known, isn't in the public sphere at all? How do you get canceled when you're just a person going about his or her life, not thinking about the political fights that are going on around us all the time? You see, the woke mob doesn't care if you're just a normal person going about your life. It won't save you to stay off social media or hide your politics. On the contrary, the mob takes a particular pleasure in crushing private citizens for whatever offense it can, real or imagined. You see, if they come after me or if they come after another conservative in the media, sure, it has the effect of trying to silence someone with a platform, silence someone who speaks to hundreds of thousands or sometimes even millions of people across the country. But if they can silence and destroy a person who is just a person, that sends a signal to everybody. You think you're safe? You are not. Bend the knee now. Get ahead of this. Bend the knee before we come looking for you. And this is an unbelievable story of this in the Washington Post. I mentioned it on the show yesterday. I wanted to spend some time on it today because this is truly, truly stunning. Because the way that it's all set up, too, I mean, this is a heroes and villains tale. And it goes like this. Back in October of 2018, I mentioned to you I had a friend at this party. He didn't see the offending costume. He said there are a lot of people there. He wasn't there long, and I couldn't get any. I was hoping to get some really, juicy details from the event from him, but there were none. He didn't. He said he came and left, and he's a secret conservative, so he just doesn't. And this party was full of the elite literati and Twitterati of DC liberal society. So Tom Tolles, and this is a big Washington Post piece, over 1,000 words written on this. Big Washington Post piece. Tom Tolles had a Halloween party 2 years ago. A lot of people were there from what is described here as an eclectic mix of journalists and political types from Washington's power elite, but also artists and musicians, jammed into small rooms and sprawled across the backyard, dancing and gossiping, checking out the crowd to see who has the most inventive and outrageous costumes. So someone came as the Mueller witch hunt. Someone else came as Justice Kavanaugh. I could obviously pull off Kavanaugh pretty easily, just because, the guy's got good hair. But the problem at this party, and remember, this is in the second most beloved liberal left-wing newspaper in the United States. But we are now talking about this, even though it happened 2 years ago and was really dealt with at the time. So a middle-aged white woman named Sue Schaefer wore a business suit with a name tag that said, "Hello, my name is Megyn Kelly," and blackened her face with makeup. This being a reference to the Megyn Kelly incident where she said that when she was younger, people would sometimes put dark makeup on their faces if they were doing a character, right? And she meant that little kids would do this. And NBC basically fired her over that. Like, they pushed her out over that remark. So, and of course the libs, Megyn Kelly learned a lesson, one that I would tell anybody. Once you've been on the right, you will never be accepted fully on the left. And NBC News is leftist. They put this whole, look at us, like we're just a national brand. And sometimes we talk about how to make the best, chicken piccata. And then a moment later, we've got serious journos asking the real questions. And then we're back to making chicken piccata. These morning shows, this whole morning show culture, people just, they turn it on. I'm watching NBC. It's kind of boring, but there's nothing else to watch. So they just watch it. Anyway. So this woman showed up dressed as Megyn Kelly. Not funny. Megyn Kelly learned a lesson that you'll never be accepted by the left. And I actually think Megyn is talented and should make a big comeback now. I'm hoping she does. But anyway. And she was approached by two women at the party. One, Lexi Gruber and Lyric Prince. One is Latina and the other is African American. And they approached her and said, can't you see how somebody would find this offensive? And Ms. Sue Schaefer left the party in tears and humiliated, recognizing that what she thought, because when she was confronted, she initially, according to the story, said, I'm Megyn Kelly, it's funny. What she thought was funny was not accepted as funny at all. And people approached her. She left the party crying and humiliated. She's a middle-aged woman and probably, you'd expect that she'd know better and everything else. But it's an embarrassing thing. Look, this is at a party. People are trying to be funny. They're trying to be provocative. It was a dumb move, but humiliated, crying, left, not a public figure. This is not somebody with a platform. This is just a government contractor. And D.C. is full of these government contractors. They pull you in with the siren song of making a little more money than you will in the government. So I'm just kind of doing government work without actually even really being a part of the government mission. I don't know if this is worth it, but anyway, conversation we can have another time. But she was a government contractor, and guess what? The two women who approached her, the two minority females who approached her at this party in 2018, okay, so 2 years ago, they decided, or one of them, I should say, decided to reach out to Tolles, the guy who threw the party, whom she has never met, and wrote this, quote, in 2018, I attended a Halloween party at your home. I understand that you are not responsible for the behavior of your guests, but at that party, a woman was in blackface. She harassed me and my friend, the only two women of color, and it was clear she made her racist costume her costume racist with intent. Tolles told Gruber, a 27-year-old management consultant, so she's one of the women complaining here, one of the minority females, told Tolles the incident had weighed heavily on her heart. It was abhorrent and egregious, and asked for him to identify the woman. And she said that I wanted to know who this woman was. After the killing of George Floyd and the protests, I began reflecting more on this incident. Oh, so here's how this goes down. She emails the guy who threw a party 2 years ago, who has no control over not even just what costumes people wear, but people bring friends of friends of friends to this. And DC is a kind of, relatively, especially these circles, tight-knit community that way. People just will bring. He is approached by a woman now on email saying, tell me who wore the blackface costume, and mentions as well here that she felt there was a collective responsibility. So everybody who's at this, here you go. She wrote, when it becomes public, it will be too much of a punishment, she said. It's unfair to go back and attack some clueless woman because she's not a public person, and she was punished then. But by Lexi, who people chastised her afterward, by Tom, right? So she was already called out, humiliated, cried, left the party. But on the other hand, people need to be held up as an example of the lines we're going to draw about what's acceptable behavior. Every single person at that party should have said something to her. There's culpability all around. This is all in the Washington Post piece. So two women have decided, because of the conversations around George Floyd's killing, of course, that this has something to do with that. Everyone is now, scrambling for their narrative of how they're a civil rights hero, right? They're pushing the narrative of Black Lives Matter in ways that will bring about substantive change. So she says, we shouldn't go after this woman and destroy her whole life and get her written about in a national newspaper as a racist. But it's really important we make examples of people, so we're going to do just that. So they did. And it's just stunning. They wanted to go after this person. They wanted to find this private person. And it's just amazing to me. So they decided that they were going to make an example of this woman, and they did, and she got fired. And the Post editorial and opinion pages, Toll's boss, Post editorial page editor Fred Hyatt, said blackface is abhorrent. I know Tom feels the same way. I know he wishes he had made that clear to the person who came to his party wearing an offensive costume. I'm glad he has apologized. Folks, the point is here, these women decided to be additionally offended 2 years later and wanted to get somebody and be hero. There's a big picture of them on the Washington Post. Oh, look at these ladies speaking up for injustice. The whole thing. Resurfaces amid protests. No. These women decided to resurface it. It didn't resurface on its own. They figured, hey, how can we be part of the cancel culture wave right now and get somebody, make an example of somebody here? Remember that woman 2 years ago wore that thing at the party, who left in tears because everyone's like, why are you such an idiot? Get out of here. Let's have a national news story written about her to ruin her life. Let's do that. But let's pretend that we don't want to do that because that's really mean and unnecessary and lacking in grace and forgiveness and decency. But let's do it anyway because this is really important. Issues of race right now are too important to not ruin this stranger's life. That's what they did. It's disgusting. Look, she was already humiliated, confronted, apologized. She showed bad judgment. We get it. You're going to bring this up again? Oh, that's right. But now you see when she went into, when it came up with her employer, they fired her right away, of course. And remember, Schaefer, the woman who wore the blackface Megyn Kelly costume, is a staunch opponent of President Trump, hates Trump. She's a lib. Oh, you mean the libs will come for their own if it adds to the self-righteousness and sanctimony of other libs? Yes, they will. This is so sad that people could so lose their sense of humanity and decency. It's so troubling. I always remember, I'm going to tell you a quick story, a little departure from this. There was a radio host years ago. It's not Glenn Beck, who was my boss at the time, but there was a fellow radio host years ago who we had developed a rapport, and he sent me an email that was kind of a fired off late in the night email and just going after people in the media business. And this came out of nowhere, made media business and saying things. And I'm like, this guy, if the people that he's calling them all kinds of stuff that I can't repeat on the radio, if this ever got out, this guy, I don't know if he's ever going to work again. And I remember being kind of pleased with myself, or feeling like, well, I'm glad that he knows me well enough to know that I read it, I deleted it, and never thought of it again. Never even occurred to me to try to use this for political advantage, because I'm an honorable person. And someone comes to me in confidence, and I didn't ask him. He didn't say, hey, don't ever tell anybody about that. He just fired off this email to me. I would never in a million years use that against somebody. No, someone who trusts me is always going to feel like they've made a good decision. And you won't even say that's my brand. That's who I am as a person. We all have our ways of being honorable and decent to each other. We also have the ability to give other people the benefit of the doubt, to help them out, to make sure that we're not a part of the mob, and we're also not a part of the dirty tricks behind the scenes, backstabbing, ugly, lying about somebody on your radio show because you're terrified that they're actually better than you at this. You don't want to be a part of that world. You don't want to be that person. And you also don't want to be the person who thinks, how can I elevate myself in this moment of really moral panic across the country over race relations and wokeness and all this stuff. Let's find somebody and ruin that person's life so we feel like we've advanced the conversation. To the two people who outed this woman and pushed this story, which is written up in the Washington Post now, this woman cannot get, she is anathema. I don't think she'll ever be able to go to a party in D.C. again without, it's going to be really tough for her. To the two people that push this story, they feel good about themselves and also recognize that this doesn't do anything good for anybody. They're not confronting something that wasn't confronted. They're not making someone learn a lesson that wasn't learned. They're just, you know what? We want to get somebody because people are getting got right now. So we want to get somebody. So that's what they did. This is cancel culture at its worst. This woman lost her job, lost her reputation. I mean, I'm worried about her. I don't even know her. I'm worried about this person and her future. Does the Washington Post feel good about this? Do they think that they're exercising good judgment? This is just trying to keep order within the ranks, my friends. Letting the leftists know, hey, it's okay as long as you're riding with us here, but the moment that you step out of line, we'll crush you too. So when we say cancel those conservatives and get after them and be vicious to them, you better do it or else. Oh, and there's another case of cancellation that I think you should know about, in case you're wondering whether the situation of Officer Rolfe's prosecution is just being pushed by politics, and there's nothing about this that's going to be fair or decent. A company called Equity Prime Mortgage has fired Rolfe's stepmother. They put out a statement. Now, so this is the officer who shot Rayshard Brooks and is facing a death penalty charge. All of a sudden, his stepmother gets fired from some corporate entity. As an employer, it's imperative, blah, blah, safe environment. Melissa Rolfe's termination was a direct result of her actions in the workplace and violation of company policy. As an HR director, she ultimately lost the confidence of her peers and many employees who no longer felt comfortable engaging with her. We value diversity of thought and respect her personal views. When those views create a hostile working environment, we must make decisions to part ways. Does anyone really think that she did anything? Right? I mean, we're not idiots. Does anyone really think that she violated any company policy? Nope. But this mortgage company was like, guess what? You're a familial relation of Officer Rolfe, who right now we're all supposed to believe is worse than Adolf Hitler, even though he didn't break any laws, in my opinion, and the trial will show that. You're fired. You're gone. So now they're going to come after. This is a very important and very insidious message. They're going to come after your family now, too. That's right. They're going to come after your family after you get canceled. So it's not, this is like the way the cartels threaten people. They won't just take you out. They'll take out everybody you love. That's what cancel culture is now with their cancellations. It's not just if you get on the wrong side of us, you're done. It's everybody you've ever known and loved could be done to. When is a rope hanging from a tree a symbol of terror? And when is it actually just a rope hanging from a tree? I know it sounds like a strange philosophical question, but it's not. It's one that we're going to have to confront as a society because there are a series of reports out there that have turned into national news stories about nooses mysteriously appearing in public in different places. They have at least two cases of this week. We have one that is supposed to be a noose at Marcus Garvey Park here in New York, hanging from the watchtower. The NYPD hate crime unit is investigating this. The park staff took this down, and they're investigating this as aggravated harassment and a Class E felony. So a rope that has a loop at the bottom from a watchtower here is being investigated as a hate crime. Now, this one, I suppose, I'm going to follow up on this story. maybe somebody, but think about this. Who would go and do this? There have been numerous cases in the past of people who were trying to raise awareness about racism, including a professor at a university, very famously, who put a noose on his own door. And you think about this, Marcus Garvey Park in Harlem. Who is going to go into Marcus Garvey Park in Harlem and put up a noose as a means of trying to terrify the community? Keep in mind, if you are seen doing this, you're committing a felony, and you're also in what is an overwhelmingly African-American neighborhood of New York City. So, think of who's really going to do that. I'm not saying it's impossible, but remember when we had Jussie Smollett with a noose around his neck on the south side of Chicago? And everyone who listened to that story, two guys in MAGA hats, and they were carrying a noose at 1 or 2 a.m. on a freezing cold night in Chicago, just happened to find gay black actor Jussie Smollett to engage in a hate crime attack against him. No intelligent person believed that that was a true story. And I, go back and listen, was saying he was lying all along. And I had blue checks coming after me. You don't understand the history of racism and oppression. I said, no, I understand the history of racism and oppression. This just isn't it. This guy's lying, obviously. And he was. Is this noose a hate crime in this park in Harlem? Maybe. Is it a raising awareness, self-inflicted hate crime in that someone does this so that everyone goes, oh my gosh, there are hate crimes occurring. We need to talk more about hate crimes. That has happened. Hate crime hoaxes many times in the past. I'll also note that if you were really trying to be offensive and frightening, there are much more prominent ways to display a noose. I'm just saying, I mean, if somebody had the mindset, who would really do this? Some neo-Nazi would go up into Harlem and put a noose up on a tower. And if this person was seen doing it, not only would they possibly be arrested, but you would be taking your life in your own hands to go do this. So I'm suspect. We don't know. Another noose case, though, in Oakland, which prompted a hate crime investigation and all kinds of people being upset all over the place. And here's what happened. The mayor, Libby Schaaf, I believe is the same mayor who also tipped off illegal aliens to an upcoming ICE raid. Remember that? I think that's the same mayor. She said that there was a noose at the city's popular Lake Merritt. In fact, there were 5 nooses, and the city officials were investigating this as a hate crime. And turns out that these were just ropes attached to a tree that a black man was using for exercise purposes. He's come forward and said this. He was using these for exercise purposes in the park, and there had been a piece of plastic pipe attached to one of the ropes. So basically, this guy had set up like some swings, some levers and pulleys for workout purposes on a tree. And he said, quote, this is Victor Sengbe, who's come forward, who said that these ropes were part of a rigging that he and his friends used as part of a larger swing system. And he even shared a video of them in use. He said, remember, this man is black and has come forward and said, no, these are my ropes. They're not nooses. This is not a hate crime. Out of the dozen and hundreds of thousands of people that walk by, no one has thought that it looked anywhere close to a noose. Folks have used it for exercise. It was really a fun addition to the park that we tried to create. It's unfortunate that a genuine gesture of just wanting to have a good time got misinterpreted into something so heinous. The mayor jumps in here. So now we know that this is absolutely positively in no way. Not only was this not intended to be a noose hanging from a tree, but it didn't even look like a noose. It was some ropes, plural, that did not have a noose. It's a very specific thing. A noose is for hanging. We all understand what the visualization of it would be. They're just ropes attached to a tree. So rope attached to a tree is a symbol of terror and requires a hate crime investigation now. The mayor here has said that, quote, officials must start with the assumption that these are hate crimes. And the mayor and Nicholas Williams, the city's director of parks and recreation, this is all on ABC News, said it didn't matter whether the ropes were meant to send a racist message. Intentions don't matter when it comes to terrorizing the public, Schaaf said. It is incumbent on all of us to know the actual history of racial violence, of terrorism that a noose represents. That symbol of a rope hanging from a tree is malicious. Regardless of intent, it's evil and symbolizes hatred. So let's be very clear. They're now reestablishing not just a noose on a tree as a symbol of terror and hate, but a rope or series of ropes with no noose, because some people are so hypersensitive right now and are looking for racism everywhere that now they're saying, well, actually just a rope and a tree that's a symbol of hate and terror, and we're going to have to do something about that. And you got to stop and say to yourself, hold on a second. This is now effectively criminalizing something that no rational person, for removing intent from this, that alone is wrong, right? If someone creates a noose, let's say, that or something that looks like a noose to haul up some package or something, if they're building a tree house and they create a noose and the rope is left behind, that's not a hate crime. That's not a terror image. But now they're saying, oh, well, intent doesn't matter, and merely ropes and a tree, we should all know the history. This is terrifying to people. So if they're going to redefine things in a way that no sane person would agree with, is a rope swing now that, people have set up in countless backyards across America forever. They sit on a little piece of wood, 2 ropes from the tree. Is that a symbol of terror? If there's no one there to say, oh, no, that's just my swing for my kids and me to have like some nice outdoor time together. If we're going to redefine now just rope and tree equals terror, do we have an outer limit of that? No, of course not. Oh, they notified the FBI and they're conducting a full investigation. They already have a person who came forward who's like, hey, this was just for me to work out with. They're not even nooses. What are you talking about? And by the way, the guy's like, I'm black. That's what he's saying. I mean, he is black, right? But he's come forward and taken responsibility. And he says, this is what it's for. And they're still investigating. So I just want to know, are they continuing the hate crimes investigation of the non-nooses hanging from the tree put there by his own admission by a black man in order to work out to see if maybe he's actually a secret neo-Nazi who's doing this as part of some deep infiltration false flag maneuver or something? What the heck is wrong with people? Completely insane. This is completely insane. But you're going to see more of this. Oh my gosh, people are looking everywhere for racism. This is starting to feel like during the Salem witch trials, when you had these young girls who come forward. Oh, I saw her, and the way the cat moved near her in the woods, I knew that the cat was a familiar, right? People would all start repeating that they were seeing things that were normal, but they were suggesting that what they were seeing that was normal must actually be proof that someone was a witch. Right, that was a part of the Salem witch trials. Now we're seeing that the level of mass hysteria in this country has now reached a point where a rope with a purpose attached to a tree, even when the purpose has been described and it does not look anything like a noose, is still a weapon of terror against the African American community that does not take into account the history of discrimination in this country. People are losing their minds, folks. We're not losing our minds here, but people are losing their minds out there. We need to help bring them back to reality. We need to get them to take a deep breath and start living in the real world and stop the moral panic and the virtue signaling and the sanctimony. Okay, so big rally, first real Trump rally of the season is happening this weekend in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We have somebody joining us right now to tell us what it's like on the ground there and what we should be expecting this weekend. We have Erin Perrine on the phone. She is the Principal Deputy Communications Director for the Trump campaign. Erin, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be on.
Okay, so let's start. The part of this that's getting the most attention right now, so I want to just lead with it, and you can tell us what's going on. People are concerned. I'm sure the anarchist social media channels are full of all kinds of chatter, and there's expectations for a lot of protests. What can you tell us about what the city of Tulsa is going to be able to do to make sure, hey, people have their First Amendment rights, they want to protest, that's fine, but that things don't get out of hand as they've had a tendency to in recent weeks?
Well, we always work with every municipality and locality we go to for a rally to make sure that people who want to peaceably assemble are able to do so. This isn't our first time having this kind of situation where people want to voice their other opinion about President Trump. And actually, I was walking the line this morning of supporters who are already lined up to see President Trump, and some folks who were at the very front of the line were telling me, yeah, there were some protesters across the street, and we went across the street to them, and we were talking with them. We made sure they had lunch and some water, and we just shared our views with them, and everybody was really nice. And so, we feel good about our ability to keep our rally goers safe, but also those who want to share a different opinion than the ones of President Trump, that they're able to do so safely as well.
Now, how many folks are expected? I saw from the campaign that there were 1 million requests for tickets. We know that there's no arena in Tulsa that's going to handle 1 million people. I don't think there's one anywhere in the world that could do that. So how many people are expected to be inside and then outside the rally? And we have to ask, what are the policies to keep everybody safe in this era of COVID? What are the recommendations and the procedures that'll be in place?
So we expect a fully packed arena here in Tulsa. And so we will also have a large overflow build out like we do for every rally we go to. For folks who can't make it inside, we're going to have a festival-like atmosphere outside. We're going to have a big stage with live bands. We're going to have original online broadcasts. We're going to be doing them live from the stage, so people will be able to see people like Laura Trump and Mercedes Schlapp throughout the day, Katrina Pearson, talking about what's going on with the president and the campaign. So we expect a huge crowd outside and a packed arena inside. But health and safety remains a key focus for the president, and that's reflected in his campaign. So we are doing and putting in health and safety precautions to make this as safe a rally for our rally goers as we can. We will be doing temperature checks of every individual, and if they don't pass the first time, we will test them again to make sure that they are able to safely come in. We will then be providing hand sanitizer to everybody and having it readily available throughout, and we will be providing masks as well. So if people choose to wear them, they will have them readily available. Everybody will be given one. I don't see any of that in any of these protests that the left-wing media is lauding as so heroic and so brave. We're putting out there important health and safety measures to make sure this is a safe atmosphere for President Trump's supporters.
We're speaking to Erin Perrine, who is the Team Trump Principal Deputy Communications Director, about the upcoming rally this weekend. Give us a sense of what the president is going to be addressing, Erin, and how he's going to start to frame the message of why he should get 4 more years as president.
Well, we certainly never want to get ahead of President Trump, but I have a keen feeling that this is going to be a raucous speech from the president. He hasn't been able to give a rally speech in over 3 months, and so there is a lot of pent-up enthusiasm and a lot of pent-up things for the president to talk about as well as he punches past the fake news. You're going to hear him talk about what a disaster Joe Biden would be for this country. Joe Biden has terrible policies for over 40 years in this country. President Trump, in 3.5 years, has been able to absolutely transform America and make her the greatest nation again. And that's because of his leadership. So you will see a stark contrast between the president and Joe Biden. You'll hear about all the great work that was being done, what America's doing to fight the coronavirus, and how together, with 4 more years, we will secure America's greatness under President Trump.
And Erin, what can you tell us about the upcoming rallies? How many are already planned, or any going to be added? What would it take to get you guys to swing through New York City? We could use some help here. I know that's probably not going to happen, but tell us about what else is coming up on the schedule.
Well, we will be announcing some things, hopefully in the near future, of events that we have coming up. The Vice President is going to be in Wisconsin next week for a Faith in America event, another one of our great events as we get back out there and start to begin events again in person on the other side of the coronavirus. You will see us out there throughout the country, not only campaigning in person, but holding events with our top people, including the Vice President and the family throughout the country, and, of course, these signature MAGA rallies. There's nothing like a Trump rally. And so we are excited to be able to get more locked into the book, locked onto the calendar, and be out there on the road with President Trump supporters.
All right, Erin Perrine of the Trump campaign, thank you so much for joining us, giving us a preview. We appreciate it. Have a great rally. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.